situation where King Aegon V's eldest son, and now former heir, was troublesome enough, causing House Baratheon to rebel. Things were not going to get any easier with the king's second son, and now heir, Prince Jaehaerys. Born in the year 225 AC, named after one of the greatest kings Westeros ever saw, Jaehaerys the Conciliator, it was hoped that like his namesake, he would be just as wise. Jaehaerys was a sickly-looking man, pale and frail, with large purple eyes and shoulder-length silver-gold hair of old Valyria. He suffered from numerous ailments throughout his life, with new ones appearing as he aged. Many lords at court felt Jaehaerys was weak, similar to King Aeris I, not the kind of man you'd want as heir to the Iron Throne, which was not an issue when Prince Duncan was all you could want in a ruler until that fateful day he married Jenny Of Oldstones and abdicated his position as heir. Jaehaerys also had an air of mystery, as he wore a cape that concealed one of his arms, with it suspected he bore some kind of ailment or deformity. Though King Aegon, through his travels up and down Westeros as a child, living alongside the small folk, the people he would one day rule, he had acquired a distaste for the Valyrian custom of incestuous marriages. Though House Targaryen had practiced the marriage of kin since before the Doom of Valyria, Aegon had begun to see the issues such matches could lead to, both in terms of the political isolation it causes in terms of making matches outside of the house, but more the moral objection and complications that can occur in terms of the succession when close family marry, with some maesters attributing some of this to the build-up of the Dance of the Dragons. While many would have agreed with Aegon's perspective, despite King Jaehaerys the Conciliator's doctrine of exemptionalism, there would likely be many devout of the Faith of the Seven pleased, even if none spoke publicly of it. For the sake of our history being objective, it is also prudent to point out that while incestuous marriages of House Targaryen are fairly criticised for multitudes of reasons, the reality of the situation is while there were of course incestuous marriages that resulted in negatives, they do stand out among the generally more successful matches, with some of them resulting in the best rulers and warriors Westeros has ever seen. Other scholars have also suggested that if you remove the moral issue of these matches, the idea of them as a whole has been tainted by a few bad instances, exacerbated by revisionist history. When it came to Prince Jaehaerys, however, he was more traditionally inclined. From a very early age, it is said that he loved his sister, Shaera, his younger sister, and the eldest daughter to King Aegon, born in the year 226 AC. Much like her brother, Shaera had the traditional Valyrian look of silver gold hair and violet eyes, and by all accounts was a beauty. It is said that Shaera, in turn, desired Jaehaerys, and in their youth, before any betrothals were made, they had expected they might in fact be allowed to marry in the old Targaryen fashion, despite their father's distaste for it. But once aware of their desires, King Aegon and Queen Betha did their best to separate the two, but this backfired against the king. The forced separation somehow only seemed to inflame the mutual passions of Prince Jaehaerys and Princess Shaera even further. Some maesters recently have suggested a parallel between Jaehaerys and Shaera and his namesake, Jaehaerys the Conciliator, and his queen, Alysanne. Jaehaerys and Alysanne both loved each other and wished to marry. However, their regents did not approve of this idea and attempted to arrange matches for the pair without their knowledge. This served only one outcome. It pushed Jaehaerys and Alysanne closer together and all but ensured the marriage happened. As a matter of authority and principle for the young King Jaehaerys, events for Jaehaerys and Shaera seem to have followed a similar path. Prince Jaehaerys was not as forceful as his elder brother, and did not yet have the authority the king he is named after did, when he too married against the will of his advisors and regents. But when Prince Duncan defied his father to follow his own heart, and the king and court yielded to his desires, the young Prince Jaehaerys did not fail to take note. It all came to a head in 240 AC, a year after Prince Duncan's marriage to Jenny Of Oldstones. Prince Jaehaerys and Princess Shaera each eluded their guardians and were secretly married, and more importantly, consummated the marriage. Jaehaerys was 15, Shaera 14 at the time of their wedding. By the time the king and queen learned what had happened, there was little to nothing they could do. King Aegon felt he had no choice but to accept it. But once again, the king had to deal with the wounded pride and anger of the noble houses whom the pair had been betrothed to. Jaehaerys had been betrothed to Celia Tully, daughter to the Lord of Riverrun, and Shaera to Luther Tyrell, the heir to Highgarden. Of the betrothals that Queen Betha Blackwood had made, 3 of them were now broken. 1 broken betrothal was shameful enough. 3, however, shed a very negative light on King Aegon V and did no favour to his reputation among the High Lords, as shown with Lionel Baratheon's rebellion in the wake of Prince Duncan's marriage to Jenny Of Oldstones. Angering another 2 of the great lords of Westeros was not something Aegon would have wanted. Luckily for the king, House Tyrell and Tully were appeased. By what means is not known to us, but this time no blood would be spilled. But these broken betrothals did not look good on the king. How could a king rule the realm when he could not rule his own blood? Jaehaerys and Sheara would have 2 children. In 244 AC, a son they named Aerys, born 2 years later, in 246 AC, a daughter Rhaella. When Prince Duncan brought his wife, Jenny Of Oldstones, to court, came with her a woods witch she believed was a child of the forest. This woods witch, known as the Ghost of High Heart, spoke of the prophecy of the prince that was promised, and that they would come from the line of Aerys and Rhaella. Or that is what the court records tell us was the reasoning for Prince Jaehaerys' next move. Prince Jaehaerys had decided to betroth his son and daughter, Aerys and Rhaella, while King Aegon did protest. It is said that he had washed his hands of it in frustration, letting his son have his way. What is interesting is while Jaehaerys himself had married Shaera for love, he commanded his son and daughter to marry each other, despite neither desiring the match, and many court records suggesting they in fact greatly disliked one another. The great Kingsguard knight, Sir Barristan the Bold, would later go on record as saying that on their wedding day, Aerys and Rhaella looked glum and particularly unhappy, with no joy at the celebrations. It was very clear this match was not one of their choice, but imposed on them by their father. As we know, Aerys and Rhaella did indeed marry, and with that, House Targaryen had set itself down a path to its downfall, though no one knew this at the time.